Inside the alien underground compound, we are shown a view looking inwards towards the Earth's central sun from deep inside the Earth. Now that's a reference to Hollow Earth, and there was actually one even earlier in the movie. Those unfamiliar with Hollow Earth should really read up on the topic. It is quite fascinating. Those skeptics out there who say, the Earth can't be hollow, that couldn't be. To you, all I have to say is, if you're coming to the realization that all the history you were taught in your life was lies, what makes you think that most of the science you were taught wasn't lies as well?
How you doing, boys? I didn't know you'd been recruited. Welcome aboard.
Wait a minute. That guy looks familiar. Where have we seen him before?
Can somebody please explain to me what the hell that's all about?
Just that idiot licking his nuts again.
Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
They're pulling the water out of the sand like sponges.
Blow it out your ass. Oh, goddamn hacker, that second time night that asshole's cut in.
It's the vagrant from before. He's the one that was dismissing everything that was being said by the voice of truth. And now he's an elite? Wait, that can only mean one thing. He was a disinfo agent. He was planted there from the start to disseminate false information and mislead the public. Kind of like your Anderson Coopers and Wolf Blitzers and countless others, more than I could name in the media. Now, what was that he said about a boy from San Anselmo?
I've been hearing something on the streets the last couple of weeks. Weird stuff. Some sort of epidemic of violence, what they've been saying. I was talking to one old boy, he's from San Anselmo. He told me they got some sort of cult up there. End of the world kind of stuff.
San Anselmo? That's where George Lucas is from. Now, were anyone to take a look at George Lucas's movies, you could find a whole array of either occult information or overt references to present events, such as the destruction of the empire in correlation to America, the imaginary Osama bin Laden as correlated with General Grievous, the existence of two suns on the home planet, the Death Star according to some beliefs, and even Executive Order 66 being used to kill all the Jedis. I suppose one could draw an interesting hypothesis about the correlation between George Lucas and the disinfo agent as presented in this film. Speaking of disinfo agents, we're presented with one more before the film is through.
All the sex and violence on the screen has gone too far for me. I'm fed up with it. Filmmakers like George Romero and John Carpenter have to show some restraint.
Did he say George Romero? Well, that's kind of interesting, because if you're under the impression that George Romero's movies are gross-out horror films about zombies eating humans, then you've missed the boat entirely. His movies are social commentary about what is happening in our present world around us. If you want to see who the zombies are, just walk outside and you'll see them all around you. They're wearing their bling, looking cool, wearing the latest fashions, and driving cars they can't afford. As for the survivors, they're the ones who are trying hard to retain their individuality. But I'm going to have to save that topic for another blog. Now, this film does have a customary love interest, but under the surface, there's much more to it. This woman's name is Holly, and the most significant detail about her is that she has very interesting eyes. I dare say reptilian, but there's something beyond that. Something very alluring about them, and just something very off at the same time. And I think that's also by design. And what does she do? She betrays him 3 times, leading up until the very end, where it would have been the 4th, until he actually kills her, which may be a symbolic act as well. And what does she say before he kills her?
Come inside with me.
She's not necessarily talking about inside the building. She's saying, forget about the elites. Forget about this control. Forget about trying to change the world. Come inside with me. Be with me. A few forward thinkers are now arguing that we were never intended for lifelong monogamous relationships, and that the entire concept and idea is just yet another control mechanism designed to prevent us from ever finding our true selves. Notice in the movie the pattern is, he tries again and again and again. He keeps failing, but he keeps going back to it. Same with us. How many times do we keep repeating these relationships that end up in disillusionment, only to think that that is the only solution out there for ourselves? It stops us from finding our higher self. And what happens at the end of the movie? He kills her. In other words, he is free of that control mechanism. And this is further exemplified by at the very end of the movie, when he's facing certain death, what does he do? He flips his enemies the bird. He no longer has fear.
Then you have no fear anymore. You're completely free.
And and now he is truly free. He has transcended. In my mind, the aliens in this film are symbolic. Yes, someone could argue that aliens are what is actually the top of the proverbial pyramid, but as far as this movie goes, I don't think it really even matters. The most important revelation is that there is a system of control in place, and the television is a big part of it. So in my eyes, step one is stop the system of control, and then start worrying about who's actually holding the reins. Now, there are many competing theories out there about whether the Zionists run the show, or it's the Vatican, or it's an Anglophile network, or it's the Otanists, or the lizard people, or gray aliens, some other aliens, the Nazis, Druid wizards, Freemasons, Satanists, and the list goes on and on. Now, while some of these theories may have more merit than others, I personally believe that a lot of these groups are one and the same. I also believe there are factions that play on the global stage and that their agendas aren't always one and the same. And it really doesn't matter, like I said, who it is. What matters is stopping the systems of control, and it goes beyond the television into where we give our time and money to. Now, if you're one of these people that doesn't believe this is actually happening, well, you better start believing it, because it's real. Stop being told what to think. Stop receiving information and start processing and learning it for yourself. The architects of your world are more than happy to openly tell you exactly what they have in plan for you. Listen to this quote from Aldous Huxley. There will be, in the next generation or so, a pharmacological method for making people love their servitude and producing dictatorships without tears, so to speak. Producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies, so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it, because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. There you have it, in their own words, and I could find thousands of other quotes just like this. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to change your own future? As for me, I personally received a little inspiration the other night from a rather unconventional source. I caught a rather synchromistic episode of the Futurama cartoon. This episode featured a set of robot elders donned in robes reminiscent of Stanley Kubrick's elites from the film Eyes Wide Shut. Now, those of you who follow Jordan Maxwell's teachings will appreciate the Saturnalian sync between the word elders and elites. Now, the episode was actually rather matter-of-fact about how a shadowy Illuminati type of organization was actually running the world from, oddly enough, down below inside the earth, while the surface dwellers or the general masses were completely unaware that their society was being controlled. At the end of the episode, these robot elders were forced to admit that they themselves were not quite sure if a particular piece of information was actually the deep occult knowledge that they kept to themselves, or disinformation that had been created to keep the ignorant masses in check.
Can they really breathe fire, or did we make that up?
Gee, I can't remember anymore. It might just be from that stupid movie.
The reason for this was that they themselves were actually the descendants of those that had originally set up the system of control on that planet. So all this information had been handed down to them, which reminds me of a book called Autonomous Technology, about how a system can be designed to actually run in perpetuity with no adjustments further being needed. And once the creators or the masterminds of that system are long gone, their descendants may no longer even know how to tweak or operate the system at all. Now, if you look at the result of years and years and years of inbreeding among the ruling bloodlines of this planet today, it should be obvious that they are but pale shadows of what their ancestors once were. And you could also logically deduce that the reason they've had to resort to extreme measures such as vaccinations and pharmaceutical methods to dumb us down now is to keep us from gaining a natural intellectual advantage. And finally, for those of you who've made it this far and still somehow do not believe that They Live is actually a film about our present world, I close with the following image taken at an airport in London. Just go ahead, relax, and shop.
Shit! We're all in it together, kid.
Until next time, folks, much love, the Celtic Rebel.